Okay, we are now live.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any apologies for non-attendance?
Yes, Chair, we have Councillor Scrimshaw.
Thank you.
Do we have any... sorry, Chair. Councillor Lee is here as substitute member.
Right, and well, welcome to Councillor Lee, because I believe she's now going to be joining the committee, so welcome. Do we have any declarations of interest? Item 4, could we approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September? Are there any issues arising from the minutes that anyone wants to raise?
Chair, Councillor Rowley and Councillor Henley have their hands raised.
Okay, Councillor Rowley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the minutes show that I was there, but actually I left because of the delay in the meeting. I had to leave, so I wasn't actually at the meeting.
Very honest. Thank you. Councillor Henley.
Thank you, Chair. At the bottom of page 11, I welcomed the adult services presentation, but asked for more detail. I've been chasing the officers for a number of weeks since then. I still haven't had the detail I was promised, nor has the whole committee. It'd be nice to know where we are on that, please. And also, on a point of accuracy, Councillor Pengelly was in the meeting, though he's not listed as attending.
I can remember him clearly. So, yeah, I'm sure Paul's made a note of that. Thank you, Councillor Henley. Anything else? Oh, Councillor Hakewell.
Just to move the acceptance of the minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Do I have someone to second the minutes?
Chair.
Second it.
Yeah.
Councillor Brown had a hand raised, Chair. I don't know if she's...
Oh, right. I was looking at the blue hands.
Ah, fair enough.
Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Sorry, Chair. It's just equally same as Councillor Rowley. I couldn't stay for the meeting last time because we were having problems getting onto YouTube, and I'd also got massive internet problems. So I had to bail before I think the meeting even properly begun. Okay, that's no problem. Are you okay? Attending. So.
Is everyone okay here to actually use the blue hand? Is everyone comfortable with doing that? Just, yeah, it's easier because I can see that then, but thank you. Thanks, Councillor Brown. So Councillor Hakewell's moved the minutes. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Right, so now we're moving on to questions and requests to address the meeting. So I'll hand over to Paul to introduce the speakers.
Okay. Right, so tonight we have a number of speakers on the climate change report. Are you wanting me to bring them in now, Chair, or?
Yes, I think if you could bring them into the meeting now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask Francesca to do that.
Here they are. And John's here too now.
Okay, I think everybody is in. So, Chair, the first speaker is Councillor Andrew Dutton.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity to address the committee. I wish to support the setting up of a task and finish group to advise on the way forward for the North Northants Council after 1st of April next year in the light of the climate emergency. The report by Martin Hammond is excellent, and I thoroughly agree with the suggestion that the task and finish group should follow the example set by the West Northants Shadowy Authority in using the 10 questions to ask if you're scrutinising climate change produced by the Centre for Public Scrutiny. They're very searching questions, and tackling 2 of them per meeting will provide a comprehensive agenda for the proposed group. In the introduction to the CFPS report, there's a significant observation. An effective response to climate change is not simply an issue that can be dealt with at the global scale. Some form of local action is necessary for lasting environmental, social, and institutional change. You might think it's action in our largest cities which will have the greatest impact. It was Bristol which first declared a climate emergency. However, the CFPS report includes many examples from rural communities, including our neighbouring unitary authority, Rutland Council, which set up a county-wide climate change group involving practically everybody in the community: schools, community groups, parish councils, farmers, businesses, climate science experts. The list goes on and on. Rutland Council has involved many different partners in fighting climate change. NNC should set out to be equally inclusive. And that brings me to my little gripe. At 4.3, it's suggested that the task and finish group should have 7 members according to political proportionality. I suggest that because this issue involves all of us, we need to draw upon the widest possible expertise within the shadow authority and also the wider community. I strongly urge that the task and finish group should include representatives of all parties. There's a great difference between being carbon neutral and zero carbon. I'd explain that if you gave me more time. There's also a great difference between being all party and cross party. I much prefer the former, even though it means a slightly larger task and finish group, which might take a little more time to reach a better conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Chair, sorry. We've jumped items in the agenda, but we haven't actually told anyone who's on YouTube what's going on.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I think we did pick up at the beginning that we'd moved the climate change agenda item forward, so it would come straight after the numerous so we've got 7 public speakers on it. Paul did outline that had been brought forward, but it's actually before my official announcement. So yes, the climate change item has been brought forward from number 11 to number 7. And that means that the local council tax support scheme has moved down and it will be coming after climate change.
Yeah, the councillor is correct. Apologies, councillor. The next speaker, Chair, is John Padwick.
John, can I invite you to address the meeting?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Good. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. I'm really pleased to see this report, and I really welcome the speed that it's been produced as well. A lot of hard work. Well done. Thank you. It is an emergency, and we have only got 3 months before a report is produced, but it is a real chance to provide a blueprint for a sparkling new authority, and for a chance for that authority to show its green, sustainable, environmental credentials, which are so important at the moment this year and for the future. And I hope that it will go towards working for a carbon zero economy in 2030, which is what Kettering and I think Corby also were urging when they agreed that we should be declaring a climate emergency. I really welcome the terms of reference as well, and the use of the LGA report, which seems great. I would urge the task and finish group to look outwards and not inwards, to include as many people as will be useful, both across parties, but also considering people who are not within the council at the moment. Possibly they should be co-opted, but certainly they should be given a chance, an opportunity to give evidence as expert witnesses. And also, importantly, the chance to look elsewhere to see who else has been doing good environmental stuff, good green stuff, good sustainable stuff, right across the country. I noticed that there are examples of good practice cited in the LGA report. Cambridge City Council, Stroud, City of York is another council with some excellent zero carbon housing developments, and Solihull. So yeah, I really welcome this. I'd also ask the Task and Finish group probably not to work around the idea itself for the possibility of a citizens' assembly, but to ask the new council to consider using a citizens' assembly, certainly for this, but maybe for other areas as well. That's all I've got to say. So I really welcome it. Positive move. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Paul, about the next speaker, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The next speaker is Emily Fedorovich. I apologise if I've got that wrong. Emily, Chair.
Emily, can I invite you to speak? Thank you. Emily, you're muted. If you just need to unmute yourself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't be having problems with technology. Thank you, chairs. Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much. Yes, firstly, I just wanted to say it's really great news hearing that this Task and Finish group has been set up to ensure that climate change will be sustained, like a sustained priority within the new unitary council. I really think this shows your continued commitment to the climate change emergencies declared by nearly all of the town councils in the area, including Kettering, sort of where I'm based. My main query tonight is around sort of public consultation, which obviously some of the others have covered a little bit, but sort of how that's going to be planned to be done, and also offering some potential other options that might have not yet been considered. So to give you a bit more context before I get to that suggestion, I'm one of the volunteers running the Kettering Eco Group, which is an online group that aims to help locals live more sustainably. We planted 420 trees this February as part of the Woodland Trust Climate Fight Back campaign, and I know that there are a lot of other committed volunteers such as myself in the community with a real interest in green issues, and I know they'd be really keen, like myself, to support your work as much as possible. The best way, I've sort of been thinking about it, the best way that we can assist I think would be to create some sort of community committee to support the Task and Finish group. Of course, this is obviously just a thought, but yeah, creating something like that where we can bring together individuals like myself and sort of pull together thoughts to feed up into the Task and Finish group, I think would be a great way. I personally have some contacts who'd be a really great asset to this sort of community committee, but of course the town and council, county council might also have some contacts that would help with that. But then obviously that could be used to, on a very basic level, promote and share the council public consultations, because I'm sure you've already organised that sort of thing. We'll have that in plan. Kettering Eco Group itself, I mean, we're one of the smaller groups, but we have sort of over 1,000 very engaged followers, so we could hopefully really boost some of your consultations, and then obviously before and after meetings, if we can, that sort of community could feed into either like an agenda or look at minutes and try and feed into any support that we can offer from that. Alternatively, just having one person from that group come into a meeting and bring sort of like the collective ideas and suggestions from all of the community. But obviously, yeah, so the big thing for me would be like how we can help you as much as we possibly can. But yeah, so setting up this sort of community support committee, something I'd be happy to do. I just need any contact details I could get from the council, individuals or organisations that the council's already aware of. But yes, ultimately, I just really want to say I'm really happy to see this group being created and want to offer help in any way that we can. And thank you so much for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Paul?
Alison Holland, I think, is on the line somewhere.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this issue. I really like to speak to emphasise the importance of involving partners in addressing climate change within the area. So that really does echo a lot of what Emily's just said, but I've also got 4 really specific points that I hope will be useful. Well, first of all, I feel that the involvement needs to be real and ongoing, and not just a token, not just coming to the community after the ideas have been made and saying, do you agree with this or not? But involving the community in the ideas and using your community to get the real creative energy which is needed to really make the community be a really good partner for the new authority. So the 4 specific points that I'd just like to add to Emily's comments were, first of all, I think it would be really good for you to be aware of the social enterprises and the not-for-profit organisations and the charities that exist in the area that have not had that. I know that some have already had some good partnerships developed with Kettering Borough Council, and there's a lot of opportunity there to work together with them. Secondly, youth, it would be really, really critical. It's so important to involve young people in climate because it's going to affect their futures more than ours. Thirdly, I mentioned this at a previous meeting, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provide an excellent framework, not just for climate change, but for wider sustainability. And they do have information for councils on how to implement this within council activities. And I think it's really important that those are at least looked at by policy makers. And finally, I think continuing virtually is important. You know, transport is the highest the cause of carbon emissions, and by not actually traveling to meetings, or at least having the option not to travel, how much carbon are we saving? Not just that, but also in terms of our time. And also it makes it much more open to more people. So people who with disabilities, people who've got children to babysit, far more people can be involved. So while it will be lovely to have in-person meetings again, it would also be really important to continue with a virtual option. Thank you very much.
Alison, as ever, thank you. Yeah,
okay.
Our next speaker.
Okay, Chair. The next speaker is Dylan Lewis Cresser, who I have seen. So
I'm trying to find him, but I'm going to assume he's there and he'll appear in front of the screen. Hi, Dylan. There you are. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair and Councillors. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate this committee on the motion to set up the Task and Finish group being discussed this evening. It's an amazing start for a future in North Northamptonshire that's fully aware and serious about the issues of climate change and the wider environment. It shows your commitment to the climate emergency declarations made by so many towns in North Northamptonshire from last year. However, I'm here tonight to push forward and hold the members of this body to the needs of our natural environment and to keep climate change high up the agenda. I'm concerned about the slow pace of improvements being made, and it's imperative that the project to decarbonise the North Northamptonshire economy are sped up after Vestry Day. This is a climate emergency and we need to start acting like it. So many of our borough councils are doing so little and doing it slowly that it's not acceptable. It's too slow to make a real difference. This committee, with public pressure, has started the journey to a green North Northamptonshire, and we need to continue that. As a young person in Kettering, me and so many of my peers are invested in the future of our area, and the environmental sustainability of current and future policies should be top of the agenda for the new unitary. For a bit of context, I am student head of a local school eco group that I attend, and I regularly get involved with the aforementioned Kettering eco group that Emily mentioned before. That's part of the reason I support a residents forum on this issue, so that the council can get a pulse on the true feelings and true needs of North Northamptonshire residents from all backgrounds of age, gender, ethnicity, class and profession. This is an emergency and we need to work very hard and very fast to fix climate change. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and I hope you take it to heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
thank you. The next speaker, Chair, is Sam Lewin.
Sam, could I invite you to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Brilliant. In fact, I've lived most of my life in Kettering, and then I recently moved. My family moved to Corby recently, and I'm in Sheffield at the moment studying for a science PhD. And I spoke at the at Kettering Borough Council's meeting last year, that saw the passing of the climate change emergency motion. And it was fantastic then to see well, how much support there was amongst the public for that motion. And it was also really encouraging to hear Kettering and other councils actually acknowledge that we are facing a climate emergency. And, you know, we need to make sure that all that momentum that we had then, it's not lost during the transition to the new unitary authority. And it is a positive step that the Shadow Executive has recognised the need for this task and finish group. And I hope that the group is given the resources it needs to carry out its job effectively. And as other people have already touched upon, you know, perhaps that there's a role for, well, definitely a role for experts and those who already have previous demonstrable expertise in combating climate change, because at the end of the day, the group's recommendations need to encapsulate what the science demands and not just what might be convenient for the council to implement. Because globally, last month was the hottest September on record, and that record for September was only set the previous year. And you know, every year we see these new records, and each one of these is a milestone that's taking us a step closer to an inhospitable future for my generation. So a genuine, radical and urgent commitment to do everything that is required to halt climate change needs to be made central to the new authority's policy making. And, you know, I appreciate the many challenges the authority faces at the moment, not least because with the restructuring and the pandemic, but it is vital that this translates to more than just token gestures that don't necessarily address the seriousness of the situation, because it is an existential crisis and it needs to be treated as such. All levels of government have their part to play in this, and I really hope, well, yeah, all levels of government have their part to play, and through the, I hope that the task and finish group and the new authority itself will look for inspiration from the local authorities. I think John mentioned some that have done really great work, that are already taking lots of steps to combat climate change. And, you know, at the end of the day, the creation of this authority, it's a chance to start afresh. And I hope that if we can by placing the climate crisis at the heart of its decision making, this new council can lead the way, and it can be a really positive force that both residents and councillors can be genuinely proud of, and it can secure a legacy for future generations, including my own. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. And just, you know, obviously, I really welcome the work that's been done by councillors. They don't always get the recognition for it, and we all kind of say you're not doing enough. But yeah, nobody's really doing enough. This council isn't, and everyone needs to kind of step up because it's a massive challenge and it's our futures. So thank you.
Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. The last speaker on this item is Des Dell, who I think is around.
I see Des.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can see. Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, councillors and officers. I firstly want to express how pleased and intrigued I was at the announcement of the Shadow Authority Task and Finish Group on climate change at the exec meeting a couple of weeks ago. Pleased because it sounded great, and intrigued because I then had to find out exactly what a Task and Finish Group was. I've been speaking at Shadow Authority meetings ever since I saw a post on social media by Councillor Perry suggesting those of us who are passionate about the climate emergency start attending. So thank you to Councillor Perry for the idea, and I hope that in some ways my small contributions and those of all the other public speakers have helped bring the climate emergency up the agenda. I read with great interest the Centre for Public Scrutiny and Local Government Association report being used by West Northants Shadow Authority to structure their discussions, and I hope it will be a central feature for the new Task and Finish Group. I note that our neighbours to the north in Rutland are mentioned in the report, as they have set up, and I quote, a county-wide climate change partnership group involving councillors, residents, young people, community groups, schools, parish councillors, allotment holders, farmers, landowners, businesses and climate science experts. I know that there is a wealth of passion and expertise in our community that are chomping at the bit to get involved and help do their part towards the climate crisis as much as they can, as evidenced tonight by all these amazing speakers who preceded me. So I truly hope that the Task and Finish Group and its dedicated officer support will see fit to involve all those experts and more from the wider community. From the Kettering, Morsley and Wellingborough eco groups, Extinction Rebellion, Transition Oundle, through to Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth Northants, the Green Party and the Save Weekly Hall Wood campaign. Something else I was pleased to see in the report, and something else that I've been talking about was mentioned, as I quote, an increasing number of councils are establishing citizens' assemblies. alongside other deliberative methods to gather ideas and develop policy on issues such as climate change, air quality, traffic congestion and town planning. I would push for this to be considered. So I look forward to this climate task and finish group so that the new unitary can declare a climate emergency from the get-go, and for the new North Northamptonshire Council to be leading the way in getting us to zero carbon as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Des. Just before we move you to the waiting room, which we're going to do because it makes it easier for the public when councillors are speaking to work out who's who, just want to say thank you. That's the most speakers we've had to a shadow meeting, scrutiny meeting so far. A very wide age range, which is brilliant, and really refreshing that so many have come along with a positive attitude and actually giving us ideas and solutions, not just criticisms, but also quite rightly, especially our younger speakers, Dylan and Sam, still holding us to account, which is also important. So I'm sure my colleagues will share when I say thank you very much and thank you for being so positive and uplifting. Thank you.
Okay, Chair. Francesca, if you can please put our guests in the waiting room or meeting room? Waiting room.
Meeting room. Yes, I will do.
Good.
I think Mr. Padwick is still here, so I will.
Yeah, I'm just
clinging on.
working my way through.
That's
good try, John.
That's fine, Chair. We're clear.
Right, so just the only chairman's announcement I have to make is that we were expecting the Children's Trust to be on this agenda, but in consultation with the shadow portfolio holder, it's decided to make that November because the negotiations of the contract are still at a critical stage and ongoing. It remains solely NCC business at this stage. When it comes to our agenda, it will be focusing on purely what the new unitary's role will be, what our responsibilities will be, and in particular what responsibilities will be for those of us that are elected to the new authorities. So that's why it has moved forward, but probably a good thing because we do have quite a substantial agenda this evening. Just a couple of things I want to say. It's quite a meaty agenda with some interesting topics on. So we need to keep to the point, and as tempting as it is sometimes, please don't make speeches or go off on anecdotes. So give context and questions, please. Follow-up questions are fine, but if you've had the answer, even if you're not happy with it, don't keep asking the question to try and get a different answer. Once you have asked your questions, you can come back in, time permitting, but please let other people contribute first. Use the blue hand, and as a good colleague of mine said, good scrutiny takes as long as it takes, but bear in mind the meetings do need to have a time limit, and also scrutiny can take place at any time. It doesn't always have to take place within a public meeting. We can be scrutinising on an ongoing basis. So if you do have further questions and want to do further digging, then please do so outside the meeting if you want to. And just can we all be conscious of the time. So with that, if we move on to our first item, which is the climate change paper, which I believe on the task and finish group, Martin Hammond, you just want to say a few words before we discuss this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This item originated from the Shadow Executive meeting a couple of weeks ago, and seeks agreement to set up a task and finish group to consider the shape and thrust of a climate change strategy, ultimately for adoption by the new authority early in its life, but clearly to be presented to the Shadow Executive early in the new year. Obviously, some steps have already been taken in the West, and that might be a path that you wish to follow. the task and finish group will need to decide who to draw into the debate, accepting that 3 months is a relatively challenging time period in which to cover the whole scope and in all the detail that anyone might want to do. So I expect that the new authority will want to continue to develop and add to the strategy and develop the engagement plan that some of your speakers have already referred to today. So I would see it as the start of a process. Although the task and finish group has got a task to finish, I think that the task is longer lasting than that and will continue to evolve as you engage the public in what you consider. So with that, Chair, I'll pass over to members.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much, Chair. Great report by Martin. My view is let's crack on with this. We all share the passion for this issue. And in terms of looking far for inspiration, we've got some great things that have happened locally, certainly in Kettering, in Corby. We've had wildflowers, we've had help for pollinators, we've had vehicle charging points, not just beneficial, hopefully, for the climate, but town centre footfall. And also with our social housing, making sure that that is as energy efficient and self-sustaining as it can be. I do also like Alison Holland's point about trying to find a way to incorporate virtual elements moving forward. Post-COVID, I think there've been some good innovations as a result of COVID to widen participation. I think we can look at that for future larger council meetings when we inevitably get back to face-to-face. There's still going to be an element for video, I think. How we incorporate that is to be decided. But I do think that all points and suggestions discussed need to be deliverable and need to be fully costed. At the heart of this is a budget that we've got to work towards and make sure that we're within that budget. And yes, we can absolutely be ambitious, but we also have to have a clear sense of focus to make sure we get tangible action and not just more words, really. So let's keep it the great work. I'm looking forward to seeing this develop, and I'm sure many of us have ideas that we wish to input, and look forward to being able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. Councillor Hakewell.
I thought Ash did very well until he started mentioning budget. There's no point in having a budget if none of us are alive to work under it. And it is a climate emergency, as some of the colleagues have said. Really very pleased that Andrew and Chris Stamborough put this motion forward. And I totally support the concept that one or the other of them should be on this task group. And I hope that that is taken to heart because they started that off. I was really pleased to be seconding the motion at the county and moving the motion at the borough for the climate emergency. And even little things like climate emergency appears on every KBC agenda now, just to keep people's frame of mind. I have to say this, that bringing the bee back to the borough, my mayoral year, ended up in a pollinator strategy. And I would like it to be noted that I hope that pollinator strategy will go through and be adopted by the unitary and embraced by the other three authorities that are there. I don't just want that to be gathering dust, not least of which we now have 3 beehives in our field next door to us. Alison's point about bringing people in, if I can, Chair, I hope this isn't an anecdote, but if I can just
I'll tell you if it is.
I could just read, and I'm sure you will. Sir Peter Crane, FRS, born 18th of July 54, current president of the Oak Spring Garden Foundation, senior research scientist in the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies at Yale University, a worldwide expert on biodiversity, started the Kettering Grammar School the same day as I did in 1965. And when Alison says bring remote people who are remote in, he has a great interest in his hometown of Kettering, although he now lives in America. It's those sort of people we can bring in, University of Northampton as well. So I absolutely confirm the idea that this needs to be a wide group, and anyone who wants to be in on it should be, and the use of Zoom can help that. So really admire all the comments that were made, and I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt that we will all agree to it, but let's make sure that it's more than 7 and one of the movers or proposers gets in on that, and that we pick up on the things we've already done. Thank you, Chairman.
it was a little bit of an anecdote, but I've let you off this time.
Same day, Kitchen Grammar School, I just had to say it.
Helen Harrison, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to endorse Councillor Dutton's suggestion of increasing the number in the group to 8. It does seem to me that this is a great opportunity for us to work across political parties. And so I would be very happy to propose that, if there's agreement that we could increase that group to 8 in order to include all major parties in that. I'm very impressed by the Kettering Climate Group. They're obviously very, very active and got themselves very sorted out, because we're obviously going to see plenty of them. I hope that there are groups, similar groups across the whole of Northamptonshire who are going to get involved, and that we're going to invite to get involved as well. But my main point really would be that I'd be very happy to see the number on the group increase to 8. Thank you.
Just on that point, are you actually proposing that we increase it to 8?
I am proposing we increase it to 8, yes.
Seconded, through you, Chairman, seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Hakewell. So are we in agreement? If we increase it to 8, including the chair, that would mean that political proportionality would allow all parties to have a seat at the table, and in particular the Liberal Democrats, who did actually make this happen. So is that a general consensus I've got there?
It looks it, Chair.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you be the judge of that. Yeah, okay. Brilliant. So that's one tick. Hopefully our speakers that suggested that will be happy, Andrew. Right, Mark Pangali.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much, Chair, because that'll be left to the task and finish group. It's just on 5.5, dedicated officer support would be provided by Democratic Services and relevant officers from NCC and JPU. We've seen some great work in Corby and Kettering and other local authorities. Hopefully the officers that are key to climate change and bringing them reports forward in our local authorities will be involved in this as well. It's really important that the people that have helped us move along in Corby, Kettering, Malvern and East Northants are also part of this debate. So hopefully that will be included.
Yeah, I think that's we can make sure that is included. I don't know if that was an omission, Martin, as opposed on purpose, or whether it's just not listed. Where's Martin?
Well, it says amongst others in the report, because I wasn't attempting to list everybody who might have a role.
Oh, okay.
But really, I take Councillor Pengali's point. That's the intention.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support this motion and the fantastic report by Martin. I wanted to also say, when Councillor Davies talked about the fully costed proposal, there's a lot more at stake than balancing the budget. I mean, it will have effect and impact on all of us, as we know. And we've only got to listen to David Attenborough. I don't think anyone here doubts that climate change is happening and that we need to do what we can to counter it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Vice Chairman. It's extremely encouraging to all those speakers from different age groups, backgrounds, and each of the speakers congratulate with the subjects picked, because it is important that we look for the future. The future is those of the young people, and if we get it right, then I feel very sorry for those young people now. There are a lot of, I'm pleased that we increase it to 8 people, that all parties are involved in this, and I congratulate speakers on what they have made. As you said, Vice Chairman, earlier, it's one of the meetings where we have most speakers. Just shows how passionate people are. It came up very clearly in some of the comments they were made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I've got Councillor Davies to come back in.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on the point of my remarks about budget, I'm not for 1 second suggesting being Scrooge and penny pinching. Anyone who follows my activities as a councillor knows that the climate is dear to my heart with local activities. It's more that if we don't know the cost of things and don't know what we're planning to do, we can't then, for example, apply for external funding. And I really like to see action. And obviously, yes, let's be ambitious, but let's just make sure that we know where these pots of funding are, so we know exactly how much we need. It all plays into that for delivering these goals. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim, back in.
Yes, apart from worrying at Councillor Lorman's background that seems tidal rises come to Wellingborough, but we've just seen people have their 3 minutes. What I would like to suggest is that their co-options onto the committee, not only up to 8, but co-options should be having the opportunity to speak more than once, because it always seems so artificial when someone has 3 minutes and they're probably out there now watching YouTube thinking, I want to say this. So can I just leave it with you, Chairman, and hopefully the committee will agree that we should be able to have 3, 4, 5 co-opted people with equal rights to speak during those task and finish group meetings.
Thank you, Jim. Martin, you want to speak, please?
Yes, just to assure Councillor Hakewell that the task and finish group is obviously a less formal process than the committee, and I think it's probably best for the task and finish group to decide who they want to draw into their discussions and how, but that clearly could happen.
Yeah, I think with the paper it says that you invite people in. I think that's different from co-opting, because that would be, if you started co-opting people on, it would be hard to select them, but the task and finish group will need to lead on that and decide who they invite in. And one option as well is that at some point, after the task and finish groups have a number of meetings, it can do an interim report to this meeting, which is a public meeting. And again, people would have the opportunity, the public would have an opportunity to comment further at that point as well, if the task and finish group would be happy with that. Have I got any other speakers on that? So what we need to do now is to select a chairman of that group, which will come from our number. And then we'll be inviting in political proportionality the parties to put forward as soon as possible their nominations for members of that committee. That will be done quite quickly, won't it, Paul?
Yeah, I can write out to the group leaders after the meeting and ask them to provide a nominee for the other 7 places, including the Lib Dems.
Brilliant, thank you. So do we have any nomination for chair of the Climate Task and Finish Group? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. I propose Laura Lorman.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Very happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Ash. Do we have any other nominations? Thank you. Is that okay, Paul? I can't see any other hands up.
If there's no other nominations, then Councillor Lorman is duly chosen.
Thank you. I think that was really positive. That's a good way to start a meeting, I think. So moving on, the next item on the agenda is the local council tax support scheme, and we do have a speaker on this.
Sorry, Chair. Just to take you back, you have got to formally agree the recommendation in the report. You've chosen.
Oh right, sorry, that's my fault. Okay. I told you to slap me if I missed something, so I take that officially slap. Jim?
Move it.
And Mark seconded it. Thank you.
Oh, do you want to just check all in favour, Chair?
All in favour?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. That's fine, Chair.
Beautiful moment. Right. Local council tax support scheme. I'll start again. We have a speaker on this. Francesca, who've been brought in from the waiting room?
Yes, Councillor Stambra should be joining us at some point shortly.
Chris, are you there? No, you're muted.
Yes, I'm here, and apologies if I'm not quite on time. As I'm sure some of you are aware, the YouTube feed is a good 20 seconds or more behind what you're actually doing.
That's all right. Well, could I introduce Chris Stambra? I'm putting my timer on, Chris, for you.
Thanks. Okay, so you want me to start then, do you?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about the council tax reduction scheme, council tax support scheme, call it what you will, that is currently being consulted upon. And yes, clearly there is a consultation, and we ought to at least wait until the results of that are available. But I want to plant some thoughts if I can. And the first one I want to plant is about the consultation itself. I was on the task and finish group, and we were told categorically on the 6th of July in a presentation written by a council officer that to comply with legal requirements, consultation must include options as well as the preferred scheme, open brackets, case law refers, close brackets. Legal advice is that consultees should be provided not only with information about the draft scheme, but also with an outline of the realistic alternatives and an indication of the main reasons for the authority's adoption of the draft scheme. Only one rate is being consulted upon. I've scoured the consultation paperwork and couldn't find anything laying out the other rates that are options. And I was actively looking for that information. So someone who is not has no chance. I'd also like to counter the notion that a scheme requiring people to pay a lower proportion of their council tax bill than the one being consulted upon would mean cuts. No, that's not necessarily the case at all. You've only got to look at the example of Northamptonshire County Council in the last couple of years. Millions and millions of pounds have been saved from the budget of that authority with hardly any frontline service cuts at all. So you know, it can be done. In aligning schemes across the north, we were told that around £40,000 of income would be generated from things like aligning backdating, aligning empty and unfurnished discounts, and aligning uninhabitable discounts. And in addition, if the maximum flexibilities around long-term empty properties are adopted, over £493,000 worth of extra income would be generated. The extra cost of a 20% rate, for example, is £539,000, and the income generated by the changes in the in alignment and in the flexibilities almost exactly covers that amount. You might consider that a rate lower than 25% might be affordable then. I just wanted to talk about one other thing, which is how people might be supported in the future if they're unable to cover the extra cost of the scheme, whatever scheme is adopted, because in some parts of the county, there will be extra costs for people. You know, for instance, in Corby, thousands of claimants are going to have to find an extra £4 to £5 a week out of fixed income as well. So one option is a discretionary fund. And we were told, again, at the Task and Finish group, that at present, none of the district and borough councils operate a discretionary council tax support fund for those in receipt of council tax support to apply to if they're having difficulty making their council tax payments. So that might be something you want to think about. And the
You're up to 3.5 minutes now. I'm being very nice.
Okay, very quickly. The important thing to bear in mind, it is a fund. When it's gone, it's gone. There's no open-ended expenditure commitment. So if you think that's a good idea, don't be deterred from it by those who say it might cost too much. You know, you can limit the cost. Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your forbearance.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for giving us your time. Right, so could I, Chris, we're going to pop you into the waiting room. And could I invite Lisa Hyde from Kettering Borough Council to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. May I also introduce Lucy Hogston,
who's the Head of Customer and Community Services at ENC, who's also been instrumental in putting together a lot of the technical aspects of the work, initially for the Task and Finish group and then to report on to Shadow Executive. So she has a good background in the technical knowledge and is here this evening as well. Just to give you an overview, you have the report there. I'm sure members are aware that since 2013, responsibility of what was then the National Council Tax Benefits Scheme was transferred to individual local authorities, along with the cost of administering that scheme. And the Task and Finish group had, over a series of meetings in July and August, received a considerable amount of information and detail about the existing schemes, some of which is included in the report, and how they work, their similarities and their differences. And consideration was given to what those sovereign authorities' existing schemes were, and also the total cost of that scheme, which amounts to around 15.7 million for the 4 sovereign councils. Not surprisingly, thought was also given to future demand and the risks of the potentially increasing cost of LCTS scheme in the current COVID environment. Shadow Executive agreed to consult on the proposal that was made by the Task and Finish group for the North Northamptonshire Authority that would result in a contribution by working age recipients of 25% of the North Northamptonshire council tax amount, whatever that may be. It's also important to note that during the detailed work, there were also six key changes required to harmonise the schemes, and they're outlined in the report in 5.3.2 to make sure that all of those quirks that were across North Northamptonshire in the different schemes come together. As already been stated, it is a legal requirement to consult on any proposed LCTS scheme, and any consultation on the proposals will also include the proposed technical changes that you've seen tonight. The consultation also includes the options that were considered as part of the Task and Finish deliberations and the rationale as to why they were not taken forward. That is also a legal requirement, as I think Councillor Stamborough referred to. If I can just move on to the consultation process, the group also agreed a preference for an 8-week consultation. That has indeed started and is 2 weeks longer than the statutory requirement being 6 weeks minimum. I know that councillors will probably want to be reassured that the consultation process in this COVID environment gets to everyone who wishes to respond to that opportunity. That includes not only the 10,500 working age claimants in North Northamptonshire, but also the wider population as well. And section 5.5 of the report outlines the many and varied ways we are promoting the consultation document during the 8 weeks and a detail of the timetable. I just want to add that in addition, we are also writing to each claimant to ensure that they are aware of the consultation. So every claimant that is currently on LCTS in North Northamptonshire will be written to tell them that the consultation is underway. Due to the technical nature of these changes, the survey contains a supplementary information document that includes those proposals I talked about earlier, which the Task and Finish group decided to not move ahead with, and also a frequently asked questions document to try and make that clearer. I must reiterate tonight, this scheme has not been agreed. The only thing that's been agreed is to move to an 8-week consultation on both the headline rate of the 25% and the alignment of the existing North Northamptonshire scheme in line with the statutory requirements. Once the consultation closes, the next very important process is to ensure that those responses are analysed and are given due regard by the Shadow Executive in its decision-making process. Just to make some reference there to Councillor Stamborough's points as well, although not specific to the Task and Finish group remit, they did consider the very important role of debt and money management services and how they are carried out across the North in various different forms. And they wanted to convey that importance to the Task and Finish MTFP budget group as well as part of their deliberations. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions. Helen Harrison, please.
Thank you. I wonder if I could just take you to page 18, point 5.3.2 in the report. there's quite a few things there that are being consulted on. Some of them seem to be reasonably self-explanatory, but I wonder if you could just, briefly whiz through those points so that we actually know what they mean in practice.
Thank you.
It's Lucy here. I can take that up with you. So backdating restricted to 1 month. At the moment, 3 of the 4 local authorities in the north restrict backdating of council tax support to 1 month. One still is under allows 6 months. So it's a case of aligning that. Backdating a claim is where somebody requests their council tax support is backdated to an earlier date that they can claim, but they have to show good cause for that. So during the task and finish group, I actually provided analysis of the backdating that was carried out in all 4 local authorities, although Corby Council couldn't extract that data for me. But I gave an idea that actually through the north, there wasn't that many cases that actually exceeded the 1 calendar month backdating rule. So the recommendation from the task and finish group was to align Corby with the other 3 district and boroughs. You put the scheme forward for it to be restricted to 1 month for all new council tax support customers. The next one is the removal of the family premium for new claims. So now we're moving into universal credit. There's very limited number of new claims that are actually coming through for council tax for the benefit that aren't on universal credit. So again, within the needs calculation, there's an allowance for a family premium. In 2016, this was actually abolished for housing benefit. So 3 of the district and borough councils also abolished in their council tax support schemes, but 1 didn't. So it's a case again of trying to align all the 4 district and boroughs. So the proposal for that was to remove the family premium for all new claims going forward in the new scheme. The limit to 2 dependent children. So prior to 2017, there wasn't a limit on the allowance that was given for dependent children. But after 2017, housing benefit, tax credits and universal credit all limited to 2 dependent children. So again, 3 of the 4 district and borough councils aligned their council tax support schemes to mirror the HMRC and DWP. 1 authority didn't. So what we were recommending for the new scheme is to align everybody by removing the limiting to 2 dependent children. The next one is temporary absence outside the UK, limited to 4 weeks. So prior to 2017, customers could be absent from their home for 13 weeks without it affecting their benefits. But again, DWP made changes to housing benefit rules to limit this to 4 weeks. So again, 3 of the 4 district and borough councils amended their council tax scheme to align. 1 didn't, so that's why there's the proposal to align all going forward for the new scheme. This is likely to have minimal impact. We couldn't, we don't have recorded on the system how many people have actually been limited since this came into force, but anecdotally, many of the district boroughs can't even recall a case where this has happened. So going forward, I think it'd have minimal impact on Corby should we all join together and harmonise the schemes. The next one is to remove entitlement for the work-related activity component in new employment and support allowance claims. Again, this was introduced from 2017 by the Department for Work and Pensions to remove that element. So 3 of the 4 district and boroughs removed that as well. It's not going to have a huge impact on any customers because now people claiming universal credit, not employment and support allowance. So again, 3 of the 4 district and boroughs incorporated this change when it happened, 1 didn't. So that's why we're proposing to align the schemes. And the final one is to remove the element of severe disability premium where another person is paid universal credit carers element to look after them. So again, in 2017, if someone gets the paid universal credit carers allowance to look after somebody, they won't get the severe disability premium in their case. But again, there's not many cases that this would actually affect, if any. And 3 of the 4 district and borough councils opted to align with the DWP to remove this, and 1 didn't. That's why, again, we're suggesting that we all align for the new scheme. They're the main changes. But what we have done in the consultation is clearly set that out for people, because like you said, the headlines don't go into detail in this report what they are, but with the consultation, each of these is listed, and then you can click on the link and it will take you to all the information behind that to explain what it actually means. So that is available to the customers taking part.
Thank you, Lucy. That was a detailed answer. Thank you. Adam Henley.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, we've got a situation whereby we as OV and Scrutiny are a bit behind the times on this. Obviously, the shadow exec has already agreed to go out for consultation, and the consultation's already started before we get a chance to warm our engines. So it's a bit, we still seem to be in lockstep, out of step with shadow exec. I know it's a frustration to yourself as well as other members. My other concern is the task and finish group. It kind of feels like a sausage factory whereby you don't really want to see what goes in, but all you get at the end are the sausages. So I generally don't know the answers to the questions I'm about to ask. And there's nothing in the consultation that I saw that gave me any answers. I don't know if we looked at a phased approach whereby we harmonised over a number of years. I recognise there would be financial risks of that, but it'd be useful to know where we stand on that. I don't see any modelling on an impact on collection rates. The reality is that we're asking 3/4 of our customers, three-quarters of our residents to pay more. In Corby's case, 3 times more. I'm really struggling to believe that won't have an impact on collection rates, and the impact on that could be significantly higher than the 16 to 17 million pounds that we're talking about as a fund. I don't see an equality impact assessment. I had expected to see that. I thought that was a statutory expectation in reports. I don't see it here, so I don't know what equality impact we have done. I know we've referenced the fact we've got 10,500 people already currently in receipt. I would imagine that's going to get worse based on where we are financially at the moment. The country is not in a great shape, so asking people to pay more feels like a very bad plan. And the final thing was I was just disappointed that rather than a discretionary council tax support fund, we're potentially offering them debt advice. We're asking you to pay 3 times more, we'll talk to you about it. Well, isn't that nice? I would welcome some answers to any of those, please.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Do you want to respond, Lisa? Yeah.
Yes, Chair, if I can come in on the first one, which was around the alignment of the scheme. It is a legal requirement to have a harmonised scheme from the 1st of April, if it is practicable to do so, which we believe as officers we are saying that is able to do. It would require an order from MHCLG if that was not to happen. We have asked MHCLG whether they would consider that in the future. We do not have a response at this stage, and the advice has been that we should align, we should move forward continuously with aligning the council tax harmonisation scheme from the 1st of April 2021.
Thank you.
A quality impact assessment we have undertaken, and we can circulate that after the meeting if required.
Thank you. I think what's an interesting question, and this might pick up some of what you said, Adam, is what comes out of the task and finish groups. I presume is quite a detailed report. I can't imagine under what circumstances that could possibly be private and confidential. So would it be possible for any member of Scrutiny to request that if they felt the need to look at that level of detail? That's the question. I'm just asking that question. Because
it's a fair question. The honest answer is I don't know what detail Dave was presented with.
So I think, Paul, if we could ask that question, you know, some members do want to get that level of detail, and if they do, then I believe if it's not extra work for officers, if the report's already been done, then hopefully we could have access to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to come back on anything, Adam?
Just I didn't see an answer on collection rates. That's the key thing, given we were already talking about budgets earlier on and climate doability. This could have a massive impact on our budgets if people don't pay the council tax.
Can anyone, is there a response to that, or do you want to come back to the councillor? Glenn Hammonds.
I'm happy to provide an initial response. There was a lot of modelling that was undertaken as part of the work for the Task and Finish group on all of the options that were put forward and considered, and collection rates was one of those. And what we'll be able to do, because ultimately the proposed scheme here is that we're out for consultation on, is one which is essentially a cost neutral position across all 4 areas. And there will be some areas that are paying more, considerably more, and others which are paying less. So what we would naturally expect across the piece, that those collection rates will vary in the different areas. We did make assumptions around that as part of the modelling that we undertook. Obviously, the wider issue at the moment with regards to collection rates is around COVID. And one of the bits we have seen, as is noted within the report, is that COVID has had an impact on the number of people claiming and accessing council tax support as well. So it is something that we have taken into account, and we would also continue to monitor it throughout the consultation process and into the position before any final decision is made on the scheme as well.
Thank you, Glenn. Adam?
I think it'd be useful to see the data, Chair.
Okay, I'm sure that can be provided. I have Mark Pengelly.
Yeah, it's getting political now, isn't it? Because one of the first proposals of this new North Northants shadow authority is to shaft Corby to fit it nicely. Many residents of Corby are going to be worse off because of the consultation exercise going on. I've read through the consultation exercise. I'm an experienced councillor. I don't understand half of it. We've got to make it more simplistic. We've got to be able to touch people and let them know what's going on. They're going to be worse off. There's going to be thousands of pounds of money taken out of the Corby economy in April this year, which is just wrong when shops and offices and others are suffering. It just doesn't make sense. I've looked at 552, the consultation exercise. Most of it is done on social media. A lot of the people that we're dealing about that are going to be worse off are not on social media. We've got to be able to let people know what's going on. We've got to put it in easy language. We've got to say, look, if you're in Corby, you're going to be hit hard and you're going to lose out on this. It's as simple as that. And also Wellingborough and East Northants are doing well out of it as well. And it's just not good for the people of the town I represent. What we've got to look at is an harmonisation project, bringing this in over a few years, if that's what you want to do, so people aren't hit in the pocket. So I think that's what we've got to look at. But what Chris Amber said as well, we're consulting on one point only, just on one point. We should be putting an array of options down, and we should be explaining to people, if this is what you're doing now, this is how you're going to be affected in the future. There's very little. There's a lot of stuff there. I don't understand half of it, as I said. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Was there something you wanted to ask, though, or do you just want the officers to respond to your sentiments?
Well, there's not much to ask. I think it's got to be put in more plain English. I think we've got to put options forward, and that's not happened, and give people some choices. What we're being told here is take it or leave it, and it's just not good enough. And I understand the officers have put a lot of work into it. I'm just wondering if any Corby officers were involved who said Kettering and East North fans who were involved in it. It's just disappointing that the first decision this new unitary is to have a go at Corby.
Any officers would like to respond to Mark's comments at all?
If I may, Chair, I just want to say that I think we should just reiterate that the decision re the scheme has not been made yet. The decision was to consult, and I appreciate, but it is the decision to consult, so there is a way to go yet, and the presentation of those consultation results do need to be analysed and come back.
Yeah, I think on that, and I didn't mean to say this at the beginning, but we're noting this report at the outset of the consultation, and I think that we should probably revisit this when the consultation results are back and add further comment and pass further comments on to the executive. I also believe Lisa did say that the over 10,000 claimants would be contacted directly to engage them in the process. They haven't got to find it on social media. They will be proactively invited to respond. But also, I think we understand why you feel so passionately representing your residents.
It'd be interesting to see that letter that goes out to the residents to see if we can understand it, and it's got to be put in plain English, because there's a lot of jargon there that people won't understand, and it's got to be put that, look, you're going to be hit by this. Sorry, but
I'm sure a copy can be provided to you. Councillor Hakewell.
Thank you, Chairman. I love Adam Henley's description of the sausage machine. Perfect, because that's all we're seeing coming out of the wall in that way. If we just remember that this scheme came in to save government in 2012 £500 million. It wasn't about how we protect or look after the most vulnerable. It was a £500 million cut, for which government in 2013 gave 1 year of subsidy if you chose to take it. So it's an austerity cut that we're looking at and we're battling with today. 5.3.1 in the report, and ad nauseam until people got fed up with me asking the question. When I read the task and finish group received detailed information on the elements of each individual scheme for each council in Northamptonshire, it just makes what's left of my hair bristle, because we were not allowed to watch those meetings. We were not allowed to participate in those meetings. If I dare say, I've got 2 daughters, and if they came home and said, this lad said, trust me, I would say that was the last thing you should do. And I don't get trust me from the task and finish panel, because there is no information that has come out of that other than hearsay and a lot of other information that we have not yet seen. The header page on the consultation talks about, it's Councillor Jelly in charge of finance, Northamptonshire Council must offer one fair and consistent scheme to all of our residents. Now, I believe, and I've asked the question, and we are at the beginning, Chairman, I take your point, that we could have continued with the 4 existing options. Unequivocally, I've looked at the Dorset example, and as far as I can see, that was one of the options they had. And in Dorset, going the same way as we are, they gave a number of options to do that. So I don't think that it is correct on the consultation page that we must offer. And further down the page, it says, I would encourage anyone who is likely to be affected. Every last one of us in Northamptonshire are affected. It's not a question of who is likely to affect you. Obviously, as Mark has said, there are those people who are directly in receipt of this benefit, but this comes out of the general fund revenue account and affects every taxpayer up or down in that particular way. And you know, going back onto that, if it is practical to do so, I don't know who decided whether it was practical to do so, to put this scheme in. So in those circumstances, I think, and I still believe, and I'll wait for the legal advice, that we should be leaving the exact four that are there in the same way as the council tax harmonisation will move forward, for the newly elected council, subsequent to May the 6th next year, to decide how that runs forward. I sincerely believe that that is the case. Just really going on from that, a civilized society is judged by how it treats those least well off or those least healthy in its society. And this is taking that away in the very beginning in this consultation. Councillor Stanborough made the point, and I would like to move and ask someone to perhaps second that, that we ask the executive to devise a scheme and a budget to allow scope to support those people who find themselves in the most difficult situations. So there's time during the consultation to come out with that as an option. I remember the unitary option, Chairman, and you will remember that we could have more than one and less than three unitary councils. That's a similar typical consultation. What do you end up with? Oh, I think two might be right. This one is not a consultation, it's an insultation. You don't even have the choice, only to say you strongly disagree, of looking at different options with different funding options. So those people who are not involved in receipt of these benefits, the general community who pay council tax, might like to say, I don't mind spending a few pence more to put a budget in, or to have a lower, or should I say a higher benefit on council tax. And therefore, my last point is, what happens if overwhelmingly in this consultation, the answer is strongly disagree, strongly disagree? I mean, what do you do then? You ignore the strongly disagree because there's no other option for people to agree on. So, Chairman, I absolutely feel, and the whole theme of this change is that we have hard-pressed officers, we have task and finish that won't condescend to let people like myself who might have the interest watch their deliberations, and then we get fed this and the community get fed it. As Mark Bengali said, a lot of it is unintelligible. So in summary of all of that, I would like to know what will happen if everyone strongly disagrees, and I would formally move that we ask executive to set up a fund and a set of circumstances for approval if this goes through, which I'm sure it will, for those people least well off. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jim. I'll take your question first, which is if everybody replying to the consultation strongly disagrees. Is anyone happy to take that question? Yeah, Lisa?
That is absolutely a decision for the shadow executive to determine what the scheme is going forward, to understand what the budget gap that would create, and then to make their decision with regard to that on how they fill that budget gap. I think Councillor Stanborough referred earlier to some of the deliberations of the Task and Finish group about looking at council tax discounts and exemptions, about how they may fill that gap going forward, and that will be for the medium-term financial planning and budget group to consider.
But there'll be no time to do it.
Through the chair, Jim. So I think that was a clear answer, and it does come back to budgets. But in terms of what you want to formally move, do you want to just say that?
That this overview and scrutiny committee strongly requests that the executive formulate both a budget and a set of circumstances under which the most affected people from this decision, should it go ahead, will be able to be financially supported.
Right, do we have a seconder for that move? Councillor Lee. do we have any views? I will come to you, Laura. I'd have to see if there was a consensus on that. So, Paul, I don't want to particularly go to a vote, but I want to just get if there's a consensus to support Jim's.
Well, I suppose, Chair, if there's anyone who strongly objects to that suggestion going forward, speak or forever hold your peace, I think.
Well, I might a little bit.
All right.
I would, just to temper that slightly, I think 6.61, which talks about the sort of what I would call the safety nets, I don't think seems particularly robust. I know at Kettering they have a strong social inclusion team, and I'm sure all the other councils do, and it doesn't really seem to pick that up. I can't see much context of how we're going to support people, but I wouldn't be too supportive of asking for a budget to be allocated if we don't know where that budget's going to come from. I think we could say that we would like them to see if they could allocate some budget to it. But what I'd really want to see is some more detail and the granular detail of how the people who may struggle would be supported, because at the moment the community impact just seems quite glib. And I think there probably is a lot of good work that already goes on at the councils, and I don't think that's captured in the community impact statement. So sorry, I know I shouldn't be going on as chair, but I just wanted to say that, Jim.
That's for the executive to decide. You have an opinion, Chairman. I have an opinion and have moved it. It will be for the executive to decide exactly what you've said, but not for us to debate it now.
Okay, I just wanted to temper it slightly. But if we want the executive to revisit the community impact and look at the possibility of allocating some budget and further resource to it, then. Yeah. Okay. And that's seconded by Natalie. Is there a general consensus that we'd like to go back to the executive with that request? Hands, yeah. What do you get there, Paul?
I get the majority with their hands up.
Joe, do you speak? Well, I've got to come to Laura and Joe. So can we, does anybody want to speak on this particular amendment? Or this particular amendment, this particular proposal? Joe Byrne.
Thank you. I really just wanted to support what Councillor Hakewell had said. We need more robust support of our communities for what's coming up. With COVID, this isn't going to end well, and people are going to need more support than they currently get. And I think we need to look at this and think about that now. I feel quite passionately about this. So yeah, I completely support Councillor Hakewell's suggestion.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to comment on Councillor Hakewell's proposal? Is anybody desperately opposed to it? No? Okay, we'll put that forward.
Thank you, Chair.
And I've got Laura. She's still here. Laura, oh, there you are, Laura, sorry. Thank you for being patient. You're muted. Laura, we can't hear you. No, we can hear you now, yes.
Sorry about that. In B2, concerned about the removal of severity premiums when you have else living in the same household receiving the carer, because quite often you will have just by the name of being a carer is able to work and have to receive your credit, and I would be concerned if that is that. But the whole, if I may call it, it's an excellent report by our office. I congratulate them because there is a lot of assumption everything in there, but it is a consultation, and I would like see in 8 weeks' time that consultation has ended, actual result, because we can discuss it to pieces. We don't know what the general public is actually going to say when they see this and the comments are going to come in. And when I look at 6.1, consultation end and creation by the shadow executive is on the 28th of January 2021. So I presume that sometime in January, the results should be available for members. Quality impact assessment in whatever shape or form is there any possibility we would be able to see a précis of that, not detailed works, just a précis of what the results were, and if it's sort of earlier in or January, it would enable us to forward to the shadow executive as well some suggestions if necessary. It's just a thought.
Thank you. I presume that will be fed back as well. I think we would want to comment on it again, definitely, when the consultation is back. Thank you. I've got Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. I will be quick. One thing I was disappointed to see in the report was that it's an online questionnaire only. It would have been nice to have paper copies available. Not everyone's got computer or access to the internet.
Yeah, if I could come back on that, we have stated that we can get it in other forms as well, such as paper copies, but what we've actually set up with the letters that are going out to the customers, we're putting a contact telephone number on there, so if they can't get online, we can actually complete the online form with them over the phone and explain it, or we can send the paper copy out. So we have got that option in there for people as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any more comments? I haven't got any more hands up. So I will, could I have someone to move the report that we note the consultation?
Good, Chairman.
And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hayquell. Thank you. Right. So we move on now to the detailed blueprint, which is asking us to note the blueprint, but I just want to just say a few words about that before I potentially bring Paul Helsby in, is that this is an ongoing agenda item, and it will be, it's not just something we've got to look at today, it's something that we'll be looking at constantly. And a number of members had contacted me and said that they think that this deserves a more focused approach, as it's such a detailed document. In fact, Mark Pengelly called me yesterday about this. And so we've checked about the resource for setting up an overview and scrutiny task and finish group on this. And the resource is available for us to do that. And whilst we can comment on it here, we thought, just in consultation with a number of members, that it would be a good idea to do a more detailed focus on this with a task and finish group. But it would be a scrutiny one, not one open up to the wider members. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Councillor Hayquell.
Would other members who are not on the task group be allowed to be there too and watch?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. In an observer capacity, I think that might be up for the task and finish group once established to make that decision.
The answer should be yes, Chairman.
Well, the answer would be, I would hope so, but it would be up to the task and finish group to decide that. I would hope so. At the county, we do allow that. So, Mark Pengelly.
Yeah, Thanks, Chair. I'm a bit confused. Who runs the council? I thought it was councillors that set policy and said, "Look, this is what we want." Thanks for listening to me, Victoria, and bringing this forward for a small debate. You've said that only scrutiny members can be on this task and finish group. Why? Why can't we open it up? I think we should open it up. There's a lot of work that we're being asked to do as scrutiny members. There's a lot of backbenchers that want to get involved. We haven't even got a full council till February next year. Let's get them involved. Some of them want to be on the unitary next year. They're putting their names forward. They want to be engaged as well. So let's open this out to more councillors to get involved in, and let's have a proper debate. I've just looked at here, 158 pages that we have to read through and look at and discuss. Of course, we're not going to discuss everything, but we've got to look at key points that we want to bring forward and debate and make sure that we have a council fit for purpose in April next year, not one that we just bodging together.
Right, okay, on the asking officers, it's mainly out of respect for when they're very tight on time. Before we put something forward, I want to make sure that the resource is available. And I just think that's a courteous thing to do, but it is available as they realise the importance of it. Right, Adam Henley.
Thank you, Chair. I would agree with my Councillor Pengelly there. This feels very similar to the climate change, but on an inter-council level. There are people on this committee who are deadly passionate about this. And then there are others outside the committee who are equally passionate on this. And I've had a couple of emails from people who've read it and gone, you know what? I'm disappointed we're not doing a line by line, page by page view on this tonight, because I had my blanket just to the side of me, and I was ready to go for it. But I understand why. As you know, at the last full council, I asked for us to get more involved, and I'm grateful that we are going to have a task and finish. But I would have said it has to be similar to the climate, whereby it would be a chair of somebody from this committee, and then we find as many people who are willing to get involved, because it is key, but there's also not enough detail in the detail. This feels very much still like a document that's been put together for the staff, and I get the staff are very important, but there's still not a lot of detail in the detail. I don't know, there's nothing about numbers. There's nothing telling me how many people are in each location. So I'm being told that most cases, we're not moving anybody until after the vesting date. But we know for adult services, that's not the case. They're already going ahead, and it will be happening this year. So for example, if I take you a totally fictitious example, there are 30 people in our policy and performance team currently. Now, I don't know how that 30 is split. They may all be, 28 of them may be in Corby and 2 may be in Kettering. If someone's going to tell me that it's still not sensible for those 2 people to move, I don't believe it. That's where we need the detail. And I would expect that the task and finish group to see that detail, which will then help drive conversations. I get moving hundreds of people around the county is difficult, but I don't believe it's difficult when they were talking about 3 or 4 people. We may have to have some difficult conversations, but the reality is we need to get moving on these things. Some of the plus items here are not plus items, they're basic items.
Thank you, Adam. And any colleagues that are passionate about it, please tell them to attend scrutiny and speak on anything that they're interested in. It's an open invitation. Right, Laura Lawman. Laura, you're muted. I can't hear you again. No, muted.
Get good soon. It's a great opportunity. This is the second time that we've had it in front of us. Last full council meeting. Reading. It's an excellent report by Anna and Shaw on officers, and I cannot see much. You said it very clearly at the Chairman that it's a living document, and people are feeding in. 2.14, clearly the high level of feedback from the initial detail group briefings with staff union members. And I don't need to see all the details. It gives great comfort to read that officers have engaged with our staff, and the staff are the important people, I believe, in all of this, because us councillors, we go, but without officers who have created this blueprint, there would be nothing, because we couldn't run another authority, we couldn't run a future authority if we didn't have officers from the combined sovereign councils and forming this shadow. I'm quite happy with it, and I think all opportunity is there to attend or to submit our views and thoughts to the executive and any other area to approach office and send recommendations, suggestions we have at any one time, and I'm quite sure that they will be taken into consideration. I don't think I need that level of detail. Trust what our officers are doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got Anna Lee.
Thank you, Chair. No, I do think it's very important for a task and finish group to look at this. There are issues with this blueprint. For instance, after all the speakers we've had on air quality, I can't see what page it is, and on the blueprint design principles, air quality is lumped in with armed forces, covenant health intelligence, when really it should be under statutory duties, because the council has a duty under local air quality management legislation to look after air quality, and no group or partner we would be working with would have the power to deal with air quality. There are some things that need to be moved and need to be rearranged, and it's very important that we start off strongly with the right blueprints. We need to be transparent on this as well. So this task group must open up to other people, or it must allow other people to attend. I'm just baffled that, for instance, on our website, you've got frequently asked questions. I try and log into that. I need a password. How come that I cannot even see, I cannot even access the frequently asked questions on our website? There is a reference to that in the blueprint somewhere, saying it's just for members of staff, but then we need to separate that and have frequently asked questions for members as well. I'm referring to point 5.8, and it also occurs in 5.15. But it's just an example of where we need to be transparent and allow people to scrutinize the blueprint properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Helen Harrison.
Thank you, Deputy Chairman. I think the entire point of this task and finish group is that overview and scrutiny acknowledge that there is a huge amount of detail in this blueprint, and it's very, very difficult for us to go into all of that detail in a meeting like tonight's, where we've got so many other items on the agenda. It's very specifically an overview and scrutiny task and finish group to help us to do the work that we're trying to do. So I wouldn't understand why we would open up the membership of that overview, that task and finish group, to beyond our overview and scrutiny group. Now, in terms of what Councillor Henley was saying about there's not enough detail in the detail, I think that is exactly the point of why the task and finish group is so important. I would envisage that the task and finish group would be able to take a deep dive into particular areas. So, you know, might be adult social care, or it might be transport policy, whatever that might be. And we can invite people along so that we can question them more deeply on the detail that we think is not there. So I would see this as an ideal opportunity. And then in terms of Councillor Hakewell's comments about other members being able to at least observe those meetings, I would say if this is an overview and scrutiny task and finish group, then any member of the overview and scrutiny meeting should be allowed to observe those meetings, enable them to know what on earth we're talking about and saying, whoever's in that group. So I would endorse that, and I would endorse Councillor Henley's view that we need to look more deeply into some of the things that, and find the answers to things we don't think are there. Thank you.
Right, so I have no more speakers at the moment on the idea of a task and finish group. So are we in agreement that there'll be an overview? And Councillor Hakewell, you muted.
We're in agreement, so I put my hand up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm not used to you agreeing with me. I'm in shock. So
I'll work on it.
Yeah, good. So if we're in agreement that we need a task and finish group, taking Helen's points on board, that we will. Oh, I've got Martin Hammond.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder, before you make that decision, whether Paul Helsby might want to just say a few words about how that might be supported, given, as you say, the breadth of the blueprint and the depth that members might want to go into in some aspects.
Paul, would you like to comment?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I had prepared a few notes to talk members through the blueprint. Recognise the time's going on a little bit, so I'll leave that to you decide whether you want me to do that or not. Clearly, we welcome the ongoing engagement around the blueprint. It is our intention to develop the blueprint to as good as it possibly can be. I would also iterate, though, that there is only 25 weeks to go to vesting day, and many of those things in that blueprint, right up at the front, the wiring diagram, if you like, that really just sets out what was put into legislation through the structural changes order, and that was to create 2 autonomous councils. So there is that's what we've attempted to do. Under the current circumstances that we've had to do that with COVID and all those kinds of things. But it is a very basic wiring diagram. What I would say, in addition to that, all those things outside that wiring diagram that you've been talking about are all those things that are up for discussion, up for debate, up for development, up for prioritisation. And that absolutely should be the focus of overview and scrutiny and the executive to get the best possible results from the opportunity that faces Northamptonshire and the creation of these councils. I would urge that you don't need to do it all by day one. A lot of work will have to be done after day one because of partly because of COVID, but partly because this is a big opportunity and will take time. So there are many things that do not need to be cast and set in stone for day one, but we do have to be safe and legal and deliver services on day one. And that was what the blueprint sets out and attempts to do. There is lots more detail behind this. We've been criticised for providing too much detail, and we've been criticised for providing not enough detail. It all depends on perspective. So we are trying to balance all those things, and it is the work of over a considerable number of months. And running local authorities, as you all know, are complex things that provide lots of statutory duties to the residents, and they're not straightforward in many cases. So in terms of the proposal to set up a task and finish group, I think that's a good idea and the right way to go. We would obviously try to support that as much as possible. What you are asking, I think, is for subject matter input into those areas that you want to delve into. I would also say in the next 25 weeks, we've got officers that are working very hard to maintain services. We've got officers working very hard to fight the pandemic and deal with all those things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And we've also got officers that are charged with creating the wiring diagram and pulling those services together for day one so that they can operate. So it is another ask on that resource of the workforce, but I also recognise it's something that we are committed to do in terms of supporting the development to get the best possible outcome. I won't say any more on that. I've had 3 pages of things to cover, but I recognise it's getting late. There is a lot of detail in there, and I'm sure there's you know, lots of opportunities going forward to talk in more detail about some of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And I'm sure we'll become some of that in your update as well, which is next on some of that detail. I've got Mark Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. I'll slightly aside, but if we're all seem to all be in agreement about a task and finish group, I was just going to propose Helen Harrison seemed to have a good grasp on what the requirements were, so I propose Helen as chair.
Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Why, thank you.
Are there any other nominations for chair of the task and finish group?
Councillor Pengelly has his hand raised. I don't know if he's come in.
Where are you? Councillor Pengelly? Where are you? There you are.
Yeah, I've got no problem with Helen being the chair, but it just seems again that this is scrutiny, and we seem to be we've got a scrutiny, an opposition chair of scrutiny, but all these task and finish groups, from what you said earlier, they all have to be chaired by members of the Tory group. That's wrong. Let's share it around amongst people. I think Helen's good for this group. I'm not having to go at Helen here, but when we have task and finish groups, let's share it around amongst other members as well. We're all in this together, or are we not? Just on the first task and finish group, which what I'd like Helen to look at, is just the terms of reference of what we're going to look at, and maybe from there we look at when we have to pull other people in, because I think we do have to pull other people in if we're looking at some big spend items. I'm just wondering if the officers can confirm or not if we are now having meaningful discussions with the trade unions. Are we having meaningful discussions with trade unions on progress of this new unitary?
I can answer that, Chair, if you'd like me to.
Yes, please do.
Okay, I was just looking for the dates that we started to share these blueprints with the trade unions. Yeah, I've just got that there. Yeah, we're meeting on a fortnightly basis with all the trade unions that represent the workforce across a number of trade unions, over 10, I think. It's probably a question that you would want to triangulate with them as well, so please do talk to them. In terms of the documents that you've seen, the high-level blueprints were shared with the trade unions on the 17th of August. We shared the detailed blueprints with them on the 11th of September. And we received a number of questions from the trade unions, a bit like the frequently asked questions. We're just in the process of finalising the answers to all those, and we're going to send those back to the trade unions probably to Friday tomorrow, probably tomorrow. So we're doing as much as we possibly can to engage with the trade unions. Obviously, we're going into a consultation phase with the workforce now, and the trade unions are very much a key part of that consultation. And our intention is that, again, like with yourselves, that we work with the trade unions to develop the blueprint to as good as it possibly can be over the coming months. And I would reiterate again, beyond vesting day as well, it doesn't stop then. There's lots of things that will need to be done afterwards, and very much welcome that input from the trade unions, plus all the partners and our wider partners out there as well, who have a stake and a vested interest in this. So from my perspective, we are engaging. I'm sure the trade unions would say they want more engagement. That's their prerogative. Actually, I would just pick up on the frequently asked questions and the password thing. They are there in that place for the staff. So I think that's why that's password protected. But we can absolutely share all those frequently asked questions with overview and scrutiny. It may well help your deliberations through the work. They're not secrets. They're frequently asked questions for everybody. And we have a process now to update those on a weekly basis and republish every Thursday. So it'll be a growing list of frequently asked questions that will proactively manage and try to reassure everybody. Might not like all the answers, but we will endeavour to answer everything that comes our way. And of course, if many of those questions may well come through yourselves. Fine, that's absolutely great, and we'll keep building those and sharing them going forward. It's just that password thing is there for staff, so it's on an internal staff intranet.
Thank you. Helen, your hand went up, then went down.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Victoria, in terms of the membership of this task and finish group, it seems to me a wise idea would be for members of this group who particularly want to be on that should contact you in this instance, as you are acting chairman at the moment. You know, clearly those who are into the detail and really want to get stuck in, I would suggest that Councillor Pengelly will probably want to get stuck in, for example, and be part of that group. And as far as I'm concerned, it must be, you know, we are a cross-party group. It must continue to be cross-party. And personally, I would want the most questioning people on that group, and the people who most want to look at the detail and are prepared to do that. Thanks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If they, I mean, I'm sure imminently the new chair of this committee will be putting themselves forward, and I will just pass that over to them and work with them. But I'd be very keen for it to be less about political balance and more about the inquiring minds. I can see two very inquiring minds on my screen from over in Corby nodding and well impressed. So yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. Do we have any more comments on the blueprint at this point? So again, members of the committee will be invited to make their request to me. If they could do that via Democratic Services, I would greatly appreciate it. And again, in a timely manner, please. So if there's no more comments on that item, can we, oh, Jim, are you going to move the blueprint?
Sorry, Councillor Hakewell has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Jim.
I wasn't sure whether we were at the end of that point or not, because it obviously got a bit diverted by the task group.
Yeah.
Just generally on the blueprint, what does concern me, and it's an overall concern, is that if the resources aren't available, and it sounds as though we'll find them for task and finish to do reasonable scrutiny, what I'm really concerned of is that we are heading headlong into this whole process. And I know officers are doing a massive amount on COVID. In fact, we all are in our communities, but it's almost as if we're getting on with it, as we suggested 2 years ago, without taking account of what COVID is doing to us and our communities. And it's a bit like being on the Titanic and heading at full speed with the crew and some of the passengers just being that, crew and passengers, and not looking forward and being told, oh, we'll dodge the icebergs. As every day goes by, I get more and more concerned when you look at the COVID situation that on top of this change is too much, and we will repent at leisure for the way in which we're going on with blueprints and so on. And it strikes me that we should be ceasing the disaggregation of those county council services, which is the most complicated part. We can aggregate the districts in North and West because they're all running under the same terms and conditions. But the more I watch this go through, and the blueprint is the right place to say it, if April the 1st is too soon to do a proper job, to expect the energies and resources of officers to be able to cope with this, with COVID, I just feel someone somewhere needs to take a reality check about what we are doing and how we are managing the future of our county. So I wanted to make that point overall on the blueprint. It's nothing about the effort being put in. It's just COVID is going to be with us for a long time, and we should be taking some perspective on how we're moving forward. We are safe and legal today, and we will be up to the end of March. And if that needs pushing forward in some way, even if we have elections in May, maybe someone somewhere should be thinking about that.
Thank you, Jim. Do you want to come back on that, Paul?
Well, I would only say it's obviously a logical thing to think and say. I would just throw into the mix there that the workforce has lived with shall we, shan't we, for a good number of years now. And it's been a drawn out, painful thing for the workforce to wonder what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And to extend that again for the workforce, I think would be quite a challenge.
But a challenge that bears enormous risk. There you go. Anyway, thank you, Chairman.
Your points are noted. So if we've got no more comments on that, could somebody move to say that we've noted the blueprint?
Don't we, apologies, don't we have to add an extra 2.17 saying that we wish to generate a task and finish group?
We possibly do, yes.
We haven't set ourselves any timescales either as to when they report back. I'm presuming the January or February meeting in time for the full shadow authority.
I would maybe suggest with the task and finish group to go in line with the climate change group, who are going to do an interim report back in the December meeting, if there is scope on the agenda, because January will be very busy with the budget. So I think an interim report and then another report back in January would be prudent. In terms of timescales, I'll be handing over to the chair on that, but there is a sense of urgency and we have to be completed in the work by the end of January for the February executive. So I think it's a good point to make. I've made an assumption there that we just knew that the February was the deadline, but you're right.
Thank you.
So Paul, do we need to officially propose on the task and finish group?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that members understand what they're agreeing to on that.
Yeah, please do.
Agreeing to a task and finish group whose main scope is obviously to go through the blueprint in fine detail and raise concerns, suggestions, drill down into the text. We're saying that the membership of the task and finish group will come exclusively from this committee, which Councillor Harrison will chair. We haven't actually set a number on the membership, but I think you've made it open-ended in terms of any of the members of the committee who do want to participate would be allowed to do so. Have I picked that up okay?
Helen, do you want to comment?
Well, I think there should be a defined group of people and a number that's not unwieldy, because otherwise it'll just be another overview and scrutiny meeting like tonight, which could go on and on and on. And I'm not suggesting that discussing things in detail is a bad thing, but I think, I don't know what the optimum number for the group would be. Is it 13 on this group?
Well, can I I'll throw this in if I may, Chair, through the chair. Why, you don't have to keep it in political perspective, but perhaps, an independent, couple of Labour, maybe 3 or 4 Conservative, maybe sort of mix, just as a suggestion.
Yeah,
Martin's looking pained. I don't know if he wants to come in.
I think you decided earlier you should have 5 members, and I thought that the request earlier in the meeting was that other members of the scrutiny committee could observe it.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because there probably is an optimum number of members for you to get through the volume of stuff you've got to get through. So maybe the easiest thing to do is to fix for 5 members, say, and allow other members of scrutiny to at least observe it.
Yeah. I would concur with that.
I would be happy with that, because I really do think if you're getting into a lot of detail, people need to have to and fro a discussion where you're not asking one question and then not able to come back. I think it would want to be a very free-flowing debate and discussion amongst those members. I get completely that if you're just observing the meeting, it could be very frustrating. But I think the point is that it needs to be people who really do want to dig down, and I'm not suggesting, and who've got the time, that more importantly. So I would be very happy to go with that number 5 if that's the agreement of this group.
Yeah, and I think we see who the groups put forward, because I think deciding on numbers politically, we might not get those numbers putting themselves forward. This is about who's interested, who's got the time, and who's really focused on it. So if we say 5, I would concur with that. But Jim, you want to speak?
Yeah, just two things really. My original point was not just members of Scrutiny who could observe, but any one of the 152 councillors on the shadow should be able to observe, because that was the thing that really grieved me about the 11 task and finish. Second point is, on that very basis, are these going to be Zoom, YouTube meetings? Because that obviously does your ability for anyone to be able to watch. But if it's not going to be Zoom, YouTubed, I would want all 150, or those small number who wish to be able to watch at least. I don't know how Helen feels and how you feel, Chairman.
Well, they're not watching this, are they? So they can't be that interested. I'm sorry, but I'm quite harsh on this. They all say they're so interested in Scrutiny. They don't come along to this. They don't go along to the executive. Most of the people that are engaged and interested are sitting on this Zoom meeting now. I think this is a Scrutiny committee, and it should be open to Scrutiny members, because it's our work. And if they want to take an interest in it, they can come to this meeting and speak to the papers and comment at that point. Just my opinion.
Differs from mine. I'm glad we've got there at the end of the meeting. So what you're saying is that if a councillor who's not here tonight for whatever reason wished to watch Helen's excellent chairmanship of this group, was one of the 152, he or she would not be able to observe it.
Well, that's just my opinion. Helen, you want to come in?
You're muted.
Muted.
Muted, Councillor Harrison.
Sorry, it's late. Yeah, I mean, I'm with Victoria on this. One, because I think sometimes you've been given a piece of work to do, you want to get on with it, you want to, just have a free-flowing conversation and a debate. It's not a formal meeting. It's a chance for people to chew over some things that they want to chew over. It's part of our role as overview and scrutiny, rather than a wider role here. So I would think this should be open just to overview and scrutiny. Obviously, there's the point at which we then report back to overview and scrutiny, and that is a public meeting that anybody can watch and anybody can get involved in. I just think that I hate things being unwieldy, and the more you're pushing for everything to be, wide open, it becomes more and more unwieldy and difficult to control. So I would prefer that we keep this to overview and scrutiny. It's part of our role as the overview and scrutiny committee.
I do need to come back and say, I'm not saying these people who are outside of overview and scrutiny get involved. They can simply watch. They have no right to speak, but they can watch. And that was my frustration with these 11 task groups. I didn't want to get involved in them all, but I would have liked, as the earlier point this evening on local council tax, to have watched all the information they had that we don't have. So I'm not talking about it being unwieldy, just talking about you having an audience like you do at Parliament.
Yeah, I'll just bring Mark Pengelly in, but just quickly, the point on that was that we were going to be making decisions on it as an overview scrutiny group. That's why we wanted access to them. So Mark Pengelly.
Yeah. I just hope that I agree with you that we're not going to get every single councillor watching this, but I think that there are councillors that we want to call on with their expertise. There's councillors from the Conservative side who've got an angle on finance, and we can ask them forward. People like Bob Scott and others at the Northampton County Council that aren't on scrutiny, getting them coming forward. And of course, the Liberal Democrats. We have the Liberal Democrats come to every single one of our scrutiny meetings and the cabinet meetings. If we don't engage with them, they're going to ask questions afterwards. So let's get them involved and ask them what their views are on the blueprint. If not, we're going to leave people behind. And I think we've got to be all-encompassing here. And this is what I'm asking Helen to do. I'm not saying getting them on the committee, but let's say, look, does anybody want to come and talk to the committee about some things going forward? And that helps us out a lot.
I think that's a slightly different proposal. Once the committee is established, like the Climate Change Committee, they can make that decision who they invite in to talk to them. And I'm sure some of the people you've mentioned will be very useful. So Paul, back to you.
Right. Okay. So we went down to, I think we've got a group of 5 with under the chairmanship of Councillor Harrison.
Yeah.
And in terms of members of this committee who wish to be the formal members of that task and finish group, they are to contact us to express their interest. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the proposal on the table.
Do I have a proposer for that? Mark Rowley and seconder. Go on, Jim.
Sorry, yes, me.
Yes, second time, brilliant. Yeah, so seconded by Councillor Hakewell.
Are they in favour, Chair?
Are we generally in favour? Is anyone opposed? No. Another beautiful moment of agreement. So the next stage is to actually note the detailed blueprint. Do we have a proposer for that? Councillor Rowley and seconded by Mark Pengelly. Yep. Is that right, Paul? Did you get that?
Yeah, I got that. That's fine.
Right, thank you. And item 9, the programme director's update. Thank you for your patience, Paul.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try and keep it brief. Many of the bullet points are hopefully self-explanatory, but if there are any questions, if I skip over anything, happy to answer any questions. Could I just say, Chair, as well, a bit remiss of me, I was joined by my colleague Graham Kane, who sat there patiently through all this, and it was just in anticipation if there were any detailed questions in Graham's area on the blueprint. So just like to say thanks to Graham for fielding it with me, and if he wants to go, that's fine. Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, Graham. But they will all take a note of your name, and I'm sure you'll get a lot more contact than you would have done previously, and I'm sure you'll be invited to the task and finish group. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. Without going through the detail, if I just refer you to page 136 of your pack, that's the programme status summary. I will say that's the status at the 28th of August, and that went through the cycle of JIE and Shadow Executive. We are now in the cycle of reporting at the end of September, but if I can fill in any of the gaps of progress since then, I will do as I go through. So on the overall summary status, there's 3 areas just to draw your attention to, which are amber. And these are the main planks of the programme, the 6 or 7 areas of the programme. So they're quite high level. So in terms of corporate, that's amber at the moment because there's a lot of work going on and relies on a lot of resources to support that work around staff engagement, staff consultation and so on. And we're just identifying and working through what all those tasks are in that area. Corporate programmes are a really big area of the programme. And will be a call on resources. So that's amber at the moment while we work through that. We expect the direction of travel for the next reporting period for it to move to green. Children's is amber, and I'm sure you'll be aware the Children's Trust goes live on the 1st of November. That is very tight in terms of all the timescales that have to be met to achieve that. So we're keeping a really careful watching brief. It also covers the disaggregation of education services and the creation of the client function for the 2 new unitary organisations, the function that will oversee the activities of the trust. So it's all very tight in terms of timescales. So it's amber for those reasons. And adults is amber. Adults starts to deliver the transformed model later this month in the next couple of weeks, and delivering services from a number of hubs, 10 hubs across the county, very local to communities in a very different model that I'm sure members will have heard Anna and her team talk about on many occasions previously. So that's part of the plus bit of the blueprint in terms of transformation, and the feedback from residents there is really, really positive. The feedback from Staff working in those areas is really, really positive, especially from social workers, because it's social workers going back to doing what they came into the profession to do, and that's to help people and not fill in lots of forms. So that's really positive feedback we get in there, and that might be an area that you want to drill down into in more detail. And I'm sure Anna would be and her team, and obviously the 2 new DASs that start soon will be able to support with. So that's just a very high level programme summary status. What happens within all those programs has to be brought together into a critical path, which is the sequence of things that have to happen to create the 2 new organisations. So there's a lot of work and effort being put into creating that critical path and being able to measure and track those things. And from the next reporting period, so in November, what we'll be reporting on is the implementation of Northamptonshire and the creation of that council. Previously, we reported generically across the programme for both councils. So you will be able to see and examine a very detailed report on progress being made in those areas. So just moving over onto page 138 of your packs, that just shows the exception report and the kind of information that will be produced. This was obviously at the same point of time as the previous slide. So what the whole critical path relies on a number of critical products. And what this does is show you the breakdown of those. So in terms of blue, that's things that should have started that haven't started, and we haven't got anything at this point that should have started that we haven't been able to start for any reason. So that's good. In terms of the red line below that, critical things or products where implementation progress is of concern, we don't have any of those at the point this report was produced. And then the next level, there are a few things in there that where we were ensuring there was an increased watch over from a programme perspective, where we were coming up against things that needed to be either accelerated or we needed to address something differently to get things moving. So there are 3 or 4 things, 5 things there. Most of these things have been addressed now. And you will probably won't see these things as being of concern in the next reporting period. So the archives and storage one, the first one there, was just about where that sat and who was dealing with it, because we have to make sure somebody is delivering every one of those critical products across the programme. So the top one and the bottom one are the one and the same things. So it's about archives, where that sat in the programme, which sits in the corporate bit of the programme. And then the physical storage of those archives sits in the place bit of the programme. We just had to make sure that those things were being picked up. So that was what that one was. The next one was around customer services and out systems. And out systems is the platform that we've built some apps on. And those apps historically built some services on that deliver things. One example is Blue Badge, and how people apply and pay for and access a Blue Badge in the county, and that was built as an app on that platform. That platform was a shared platform with Cambridge and Milton Keynes. They've both decided not to buy into that platform anymore, which makes it an expensive platform. So we're just working through that, what the options are. There is another option. There is a less costly option. We've more or less developed that now in the next reporting phase. And then there was just some other things about ID cards, which have been addressed now, and you know, how people access buildings on day one, those kind of things. And another one that came out of that was just something dead basic that we take for granted, which is how do officers book a room, how do members book a room for a meeting. That's run through a system, and just making sure that we had picked that up, and the requirements would still be able to do that on day one. So that's an example of the things that we were reporting on against that critical path, and what you'll see more of coming through. Moving over to from page 140, I won't go into lots of detail here, but the work that we've been doing around change. So The nuts and bolts, what I've been talking about, really project management and making sure those things work together. But the next bit is around the people, and the most important bit, and how we help and support and take people on that journey, and how we prepare for day one. So an example is, will an IT system work? Isn't the biggest question in my head. The biggest question is, will staff be able to use that system on day one? Will they have had the training and the support and so on? Yeah, the system will work on day one, but if the staff can't use it, then it's no good. So we have to make sure that that's the priority in that area. What you'll see on page 141, sorry, I'm going really quickly. I'm just conscious that I'm probably keeping everybody from their bedtime cups of tea and so on. But the next slide is our keenness to involve as many people in services from the front line, and that's our change champions, and how we're monitoring the progress in terms of recruiting change champions. And change champions are something that won't stop on vesting day. There'll be an army of colleagues that will rely on and support and involve and have input and feedback from as we move into the unitaries, as we stabilise and as we start to work in different ways. And just over on the next page, so on 142, you'll see a gap analysis there of, that's basically numbers of services, and where the green is where we've got change champions and the red is where we need more of them. What you'll see in the next report, that red has reduced considerably and the green has increased. And we're working with the chief execs and the senior management teams to identify and encourage and support people to become change champions in those areas. And I'm pleased to say that the support we're getting across the North Councils is really positive and helpful, and we can't have enough change champions on day one. I'll not go through any more detail on that area, other than to say it is a very important area and that we are very committed to ensuring that as many people as possible are involved in that. In terms of communication and engagement, whilst I'm sure everybody would want to see more, we're doing absolutely as much as we can. My colleagues are working really hard to engage with people under very difficult circumstances, not the ideal. We would have been rolling out plans now to have drop-in points in all the councils, staff being able to come in and ask questions and talk to key people about things. We can't work like that. It's not safe to work like that. So we're having to do it in different ways. So we've run briefings, we've recorded those briefings. People can watch them if they weren't able to be in those briefings. We've done that for elected members, and we've done that for our staff colleagues as well, and we'll be doing more of that. I ran a Q&A session with all the change champions. We had a really good response and good engagement there. We had about 5,000 responses for the feedback on the logos from residents as well. So there's lots of work and lots of activity going on in the area of communication and engagement. We've actually increased the resources involved in that area. And I think as a turnover, what I'll do is, normally Audra would, who's the 151 responsible for the programme finances and tracking the benefits realisation. But I'll hand over to Glenn Hammonds, if I may, who's the interim 151 for the North. And Glenn will just take you through the highlights of that part of the report, and then we're both happy to take questions on anything that we've gone through. And apologies for going through it really quickly and may have skipped over things, not intentionally.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's appreciated.
Okay, thank you. If I could just take members quickly through the finance report. So this is the finance report that was considered by the Shadow Executive at the end of September. And I suppose just a reminder that the Future Northants programme is a multi-year programme, and this report here focuses on the finances for the current financial year. So in terms of the report, it sets out our latest forecasts for this year in terms of, first of all, the investment. The investment during this current year is about £22.7 million and is forecast to be on budget by the end of the financial year. In terms of the benefits that are due to arise from the programme during this year, the budget was about 14.5 million. By the end of the year, we're expecting to achieve just over 14. So there is a slight reduction in the forecast there of 468,000. The majority of those benefits were realised or due to be realised in the children's and adult services. And obviously those services have been they've been significantly hit due to the effects of COVID, and that has seen some of those benefits being reprofiled to future financial years. So although there is a reduction of 468,000 in the current year, that's not saying that those benefits won't be delivered. They're expected to be delivered in future financial years. And I think the final point I'd just like to mention is that because this is a multi-year programme, there are a number of benefits that have already been delivered. And if you'll recall, there was an overall expected target of about £84 million that was due to be delivered throughout the programme. In the last financial year, 2019-20, £35 million of that was delivered. There's a further £14 million that's due to be delivered in the current financial year. And then there'll be a further £35 million that's due to be delivered post-vesting day across the 2 or 3 financial years post-vesting day. So there's been significant progress in the delivery of this programme already, but there's still more and further to go, as Paul has outlined. That concludes my quick run through the report. Back to any questions members may have for myself or Paul.
I have one hand up. Adam?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to start with page 136 and then I'll go on to the finance question afterwards. I was expecting, given that the report was from the 20th of August and the officer was talking about where we were then, I wasn't expecting us to then get updates. Then as we went onto other pages, we then had updates as to what happened since. So the basic question on 136 is, we were talking about the fact that 2 of the 3 areas that were amber would now be green by the next reporting period. Has that happened?
So just in terms of corporate, what will be coming through in the next report is corporate. I think will probably still be amber because we've still got to work through some of those things around resources and availability of resources. And adults is still going to be amber in the next period. So the period that's going to be reported next week at the JIE. So whilst a month ago we were anticipating that we would be able to move them to green, that's not the case.
Right, that's disappointing. I'm not totally shocked, but that is disappointing. I think it'd be useful then if we could get a clearer picture exactly what, if any, actions you need members to take to help drive things forward. And I get the fact that there are pressure on officers, but without them being told as to how we can help you, I know by definition we are the 3rd or 4th time to see this report, but the shadow exec should be able to help you, the JIE should be able to help you, and I'm not on either of those boards. I'm sure they're very sad that I'm not there with them, but the reality is I don't see there's nothing there for me to then go, I can help you with this. So that's just a piece of feedback for that one. The other piece of feedback is for Glenn or Audra, I suppose, by definition. Last month, we had a separate page in the finances about the COVID impact. And I found it very useful because it showed the impact across each authority, because I was then able to challenge my own officers at Wellingborough because they showed different numbers at resources about the impact of COVID. And it turns out that things had changed. But this time, we don't have that page. I think it's more helpful if we then get the same report time after time, so that I could then, if necessary, go to my filing cabinet and drag out last month's and then have a look and see where we are and see how things change. Now, I don't know if the one page that was produced last time was a special one-off, but I found it useful, and I would expect to have seen it in future reports until someone then said, we don't need that anymore.
Okay, what we are doing on a quarterly basis is providing some extra reporting, which is what you received last month, which provides the latest financial positions within each of the sovereign councils as well. So what you'll be getting, I think it's in the November report, you'll be getting the latest quarterly update across all sovereign councils. So it is a regular thing, but it's only being done on a quarterly basis because that's the reporting timeframes of most of the sovereign councils.
Okay, I'm just conscious that because we don't see it till, in this case, 6 weeks after it's published, by only going quarterly, the reality is we're then 6 to 8 weeks after that event as well. So it's just a challenge that we can't add value if we don't actually see the detail and on a timely basis.
Okay,
that's more. I'm not asking you to comment on that one. That's just me on that one. I'll let others have a go.
I think that's an ongoing point from our committee, Councillor Henley. Councillor Hakewell.
I'm hoping we're on Appendix 2. Are we? Does anyone know if we're on Appendix 2?
Item 9.
I'm reading Appendix 2, Information Future Finance Monitoring Report. Are we there or not?
Sorry, Chair. Appendix 2 is the report that Glenn's just presented, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So in that report, we talk of, I'm sure everyone else is sitting there at this hour knowing exactly what this is all about, but it's important to note that a total of 84 million savings, 34 has already been delivered and on track to deliver so much, leave 35 million. I still find it difficult to understand where those savings, what budgets those savings have been delivered against that were previously set and are now that amount of money less. And I might like to come back, Chairman. Can I just ask that question?
Yes, you can.
In terms of the savings that have already been delivered, those will, the 35 million, for example, the majority of that has been delivered within the County Council's budget as part of its delivery last financial year. The budget savings during the current year, again, they're primarily County Council savings and they've been factored into the budget and reported on as part of the monitoring reports. The savings out into the future are, again, a mixture of County Council and existing County Council and district and borough budgets, where we're expecting savings on post-vesting day.
So, Chairman, just coming back, of those 30, what does those 34.907 million savings have to do with local government reorganisation as opposed to the efficiency of the County Council?
Well, we've got to remember that the Future Northants programme is not just about local government reorganisation, it's about transformation as well. And that was transformation, not the County Council and also the wider transformation of local government reorganisation across Northamptonshire. So there were two elements to it. And that's why I did say earlier on, this is a multi-year programme.
Yes, so the transformation, if in those county budgets, for example, children's services or adults, made a saving over and above budget, that has nothing to do with reorganisation. It's just the efficiency of the county or the 14 million through the different. You can see what I'm saying. If someone looked at that from the outside world, they'd say, wow, this reorganisation has got 84 million, 34 million done and 35 million to go. But it isn't exactly that, is it? If Kettering Borough are saving on some aspect of their work, it's unrelated to reorganisation. Or am I just completely wrong?
Paul?
If I could just say, if I could just remind members of the original prospectus for change that was put together some time ago now, 18 months or so, that set out a whole programme of activities as part of that overall business case. And many of those things that Glenn's referred to have been invested in through business rates, retention pilot schemes, which were all part of that original prospectus, and then the next chapter of the prospectus when it was updated to reflect the changed circumstances of the programme. So whilst I understand I think I understand what you're saying, they are all related because they all help to make the new unitary council more sustainable going forward. Much of that transformation will continue in the unitary. So adults' transformation of their services has delivered significant savings, which will continue to be the benefit of the unitary organisations going forward, and there's more activity to deliver in that area. So they're in there because that was the basis of the original prospectus for change.
So, Chairman, last question is, if local government reorganisation wasn't happening, a proportion, if not a great chunk of those savings would have happened anyway, by definition.
I don't know if they want to answer that, but transformation was an ongoing process. But whether we'd have got that funding if it hadn't been going forward to invest in the savings, I don't know. But Paul?
Well, clearly the council's situation would previously meant that it would have to deliver things to help it balance its books, the situation it was in. But we still set out an ambition to create efficiencies and improvements for the residents of Northamptonshire. So it depends how you look at it. The ultimate benefit is to the residents through a lower tax base by delivering those transformational activities. But again, much of that isn't about money. It's about improvements in outcomes for residents and so on. It's not just purely financial. There was lots of benefits in there that are non-financial that are equally as important for the residents of Northamptonshire. And that prospectus just tells one story across the whole of the 8 organisations, that's all. Right,
well, we have a double thumbs up from Councillor Hakewell. Right, I've got no more hands up on that item. So are we noting the report, Paul, the update? I can't see you because of the lighting. So.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah. I'm going into evening mode. Yeah, we can have a move for a second to note the report, please, Chair.
I'll move.
Yeah. So we've got Councillor Harrison moving and Councillor Hakewell seconding. Right. So then. Item 10, the forward plan of decisions update. Do we have any comments on that, or have we got any update that we need to give Paul?
I don't have any update myself. I don't know if Martin has anything he wants. No, he doesn't. He's drinking his tea.
What?
No, I've got nothing to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, move it, or whatever. Move it.
Yeah, can we move that then? Do we need to move that or note it?
Note it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to say one thing before we close the meeting. Well, we haven't got any exempt items, is that I'm standing in as vice chair because Councillor Scrimshaw has stepped down. It's not something he wanted to do. And as this is a public meeting, to say that Mick's been 100% committed to scrutiny over many, many years. And has been chair at the county and in the shadow. He's only stepped down due to ill health. He's having a lot of ongoing treatment, so he really can't do it. It's not because he's not inclined to do it, because I think we can all respect the fact he took his role of chair of scrutiny incredibly seriously, and he conducted it very well and with great impartiality. I don't know who Labour are going to be putting forward, but you do have big shoes to fill. I'm sure that you'll be up to it. But I just wanted to say that before. Can I close the meeting, Paul?
Please.
Okay, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.